military court in Democratic Republic of Congo has just sentenced former President Joseph Kabila to death. Kabila.
Yes, good morning. So, one would argue why I'm always, on the side of Africa, or always finding something to talk about Africa. I remember a couple of weeks ago I was having this discussion to myself about Africa, what should be done, and one of the solutions I thought and I gave out would be African Union, to form this kind of African court where they would, deal with matters Africa. And it's not only, to crucify people who have been there on doing atrocities, but rather would be a court to correct things in Africa and its, citizens. So that then was my argument, and as you can hear, I still follow up and every day, because no matter where you live, if you come from a continent or a country, you remain to be a citizen of that country, even if you denounce it, but mentally you remain to be an African, no matter where you go. That would be my argument. And so this our richest country in Africa or in the world, if I may say, Congo. It has been shambles for very, very long time, and it's not because of poverty, but rather its richness, and people taking advantage of every corner of the wealth. This is from the leaders, of the country, and partly outsiders, if I may say also, that people, find it easy to go to a country, make all institutions, not to work, and so that they can have a leeway to make money. And it has been a longest case in Congo. A lot of so-called civil wars, but rather it's systematically, for me, it's arranged. So yeah, one of its presidents, Joseph Kabila. I started hearing this name long time ago when I was even in primary school, because I think it has been now over 40 years of that internal unrest. I remember recently there was international, kind of coming together and finding for solutions, and actually that heavily involved our former president, President Kenyatta, and there was delegations from, the country of Congo, and coming to Kenya, of course, meeting with President Kagame of Rwanda, and having the discussions around, the unrest of that country, Congo. And I really thought that, finally we were getting somewhere, or the peace making, progress was almost to its fruitful, end. But rather now, seems like everything continues, badly. Of course, there's now a president, and there's a part of military, controls, and also things they call, those militants. I don't know. I think just people feeling the pain of many, many years of fight and losing of the loved ones. I think it kind of creates automatically this kind of systematic, internal groups trying to protect their territories and fighting for what they feel is right. But yeah, so now it seems, or the news, yesterday's news, that I think it's in the world now, it's kind of like a military court as or the government, has sentenced that ex-president Kabila to death, even though it seems like it's in absentia, or in other words, they have been prosecuting him without his absence. And now the questions, that comes to my mind is what next? So is this going to be making a lot of more fear and unrest to the country, or because this kind of a big man with the money, I think he has quite a big say, partly to people he has been involved in, on allegedly one of the militants that is leading. So instead of getting to a conclusion and having a peace at last, it looks like now everything, continues worsening, or it might be getting worse actually. And I don't know. So this is one of things that I feel Africa has failed itself, and I mean by failed by its leadership, because if something like this continues, to happen on one of the richest country, and it's uncontrollable. So what's about those poor per se countries that has smaller population, smaller wealth, or little wealth per se? So yeah, the leaders, they really seem never to come together for a purpose, or to rescue those kind of, situations. I remember also another day talking about United Nations, saga, where African presidents or leaders are castigating United Nations from all manner of angles and arguments. But if they see us, being this desperate for the power, desperate for the wealth, having no capacity, to make peace on our own, then they will keep, disregarding us. So yeah, this has been a very, very long, conflict internally in Congo. And one wonders why and for how long this should continue. Of course, as I mentioned, this happens purposely because of the wealth of the country, because people know how much they can get, how wealthy is the country. But yeah, it's interesting, to see after this sentence to the Joseph Kabila, the sentence to death, what next? Will they have, a measure to arrest him, arraign him in court or to prisons to attend this sentence, or it's just another, formal talk, as it has been happening, around the world, or around Africa for that matter. And it's not just only Congo. Now we have there's Sudan, South Sudan. Of course, I think 2 years ago there was Ethiopia internally. We have Somalia. We have Somaliland too. We have Uganda, that people never talk about, but there's a lot of internal, political unrest. Without forgetting Kenya, I think BBC seems to have released recently this Gen Z's saga of demonstrations and shoot to kill thing. There is Tanzania that I think they will have an election soon, or voting day. Also, the leading, opposition leader has been, in troubles with President Samia. We have Burundi. I think Burundi also, it has this kind of a very bad state as well. Rwanda, we could be many people, call Kagame dictator, but it's doing well. It's dictating what is right for the country, which is very commendable. A country that, I'm always look forward to visit one of those good days. So I don't know much about Western, countries. I follow up, I read. I have, of course, friends from Cameroon, and recently was telling me that there is still a lot of, internal unrest politically, and they are voting soon too, having a president over 40 years, the same guy. So, and the count, goes on and on. At least here in Europe, we could say, you can count 1 to 10 countries that we can say they are at least stable, and they are running their affairs and, helping its citizens. But when we go to Africa, we can just count and keep on counting countries, with the internal political unrest and mismanagement of funds, of course, and people stealing right, left, and center. So my question is how long this would go. And as an African, as a Kenyan, I think not just on camera or in social media, but I will keep on agitating, for stability, for the peace, for good governance, good leadership, honesty, integrity. Those are things, that I believe in, that eventually can, change the livelihoods of African citizens and our continent as a whole. I must commend, what Traore now is doing in Burkina Faso, We need those kind of dictatorship, people who will dictate what is right for the country and do what is right. And as much as, the Western is crying and calling names, battling, but if a president or a leader does well for the country and for the continent, I think that's good enough, If the citizens feel everything, it's good. Yeah, so they should be encouraged. And I think this continues, this kind of leadership, one country at another, but there's that feeling also that this thing, takes, eternity, that the changes needed, they are not coming at the right time, it's fast enough that it can be felt to a change. Yeah, but I think those are my arguments and my agitations for the continent of Africa and its, countries, because truth be told, we need change always. We need change, and a good change for that matter.